Hey, you're going to be okay. I'm Elizabeth May, and my functional health practice, Hey May, helps people heal when they've exhausted traditional options. When no one can figure out your health challenges, my team helps you resolve symptoms and restores your health. You're listening to my podcast, where we'll hear stories of healing chronic illness from a root cause, immune-centered approach. Welcome back to another season of Hey, You're Gonna Be Okay. I am so excited to walk you guys through our season opener this time, because for a third season, we're gonna bring to you tons of episodes of client stories, healing from all sorts of different things that you may be able to see yourself or your kids in. But today we're really gonna talk about, why do some people stay sick? You already know that a big part of our approach and success for so many clients at Hey May is addressing things with a functional immunology approach, understanding immune balance, understanding chronic infections, and really looking at them through the functional immunology lens. I want you guys to walk away from today's episode understanding the basics of a system that has been made out to be very confusing and perplexing, especially since we all experienced that big collective infection situation a few years ago that shut down our world. So we're going to talk through, what if your symptoms aren't random? What's going on in the body? And I hope you leave this episode really feeling equipped about how you can care for your family, and a lot more peace around some maybe endemic issues that we're seeing, like Lyme. There's an uptick in ticks this year. There has been an uptick in viral issues in the last several years. So I want you to kind of understand that immune dysfunction is truly at the root of nearly every client that we support. That also means that the immune system is truly the key to their recovery. So let's jump into it. Your immune system is a beautiful system. It is wonderful, and it does things that we like and things that we don't like. So one of the things we don't like is chronic inflammation. A lot of us are familiar with that and may even identify and say, well, my body carries a lot of inflammation chronically. Your immune system's doing that. A great example of a wonderfully functioning immune system is, if I get a cut here on my hand, the body should swell up a little bit around that cut. It gets a little red and puffy, right? And eventually a scab will form. Sometimes there's some bleeding, a little pus, infection, ick, whatever, and then the scab forms. As soon as that happens, the redness and swelling go away. The redness and swelling were a product of the immune system. The immune system comes in to inflame, to allow immune cells to get to the site of an injury or a wound, and then they de-inflame as that injury, wound, infection, etc. is resolved. So another thing your immune system does is to create the boundaries for your body, which is really cool, because your immune system decides what is me, what are Elizabeth's cells, and what are outside pathogen cells, what are food cells, what are things coming into my body, and then what are my cells. And toxins are included in that. So your immune system helps the body to identify which things are coming in my cells, which things are toxins, and then how to identify and purge those. Your immune system also handles all sorts of mystery illnesses, right? As our children grow, especially until age 6, 7, 8, their immune system is learning appropriate tolerance. So it's identifying pathogens and things that are not of their body, marking them, creating antibodies, and addressing them. And from time to time, as we grow in our adulthood, we will still have little mystery illnesses here and there that may start, they may fully expand. And your immune system is really in charge of deciding if that is a short illness, if that's a long illness that gets greatly expanded, or if it's an illness that you're exposed to and you don't actually end up getting. So some people are also therefore going to recover a lot more quickly, and others will spiral into chronic symptoms. And your immune system is really the gatekeeper on all of those processes. So this season, we're going to be diving into a lot of real client stories where you will see different functions of a person's immune system that are kind of a signature way of being. And then we're also going to talk about different educational episodes. We're going to walk through some more homeopathy. We're going to talk about how do we use it with chronic infections? How do we use it for more clinical application versus acute support? We're going to talk a lot about POTS and MCAS resolution. This is something we see great success with in our clients. It is difficult because it's typically a very unwell, very sensitive body, but we're going to talk how those things are connected to our immune health. We're also going to give you the same old practical hope that we get to see every day in our practice. I want you to know that people like you and like your children have faced exactly what you are facing and do get better. They're able to obtain an appropriate foundation for their health after they walk through this process. You're not just stuck. It's not always going to be this way, but this season is really a framework for understanding why bodies do get stuck so you can get unstuck. And it's also about understanding the why beneath chronic symptoms, because chronic symptoms are truly often an expression of an immune system, either functioning well, not functioning. So let's talk about those big old giant words, functional immunology. What is functional immunology? The immune system is not separate from the rest of your body, okay? So it is a system that is here patrolling. It is looking for cells that are mine, cells that are food, cells that are pathogens. And functional immunology is just really looking at the function of all those different cells, of all those different symptoms. So functional immunology and thinking through how the body works in a systems-based methodology is quite a bit different than a symptom-based sort of medicine. Some functional health care will also say, hey, we're functional health, but they're really just swapping pharmaceutical Band-Aids for supplemental Band-Aids. In this approach where we care for our clients by looking at everything through a functional immunology, multiple organ systems based approach, we are applying quite a bit of strategy to changing the body's function. So a new foundation of wellness is achieved for the unwell person, and they stay steady in that health that they have gained. So when we talk about the immune system and people who get sick and recover versus people who get sick and don't seem to bounce back, we got to go back to what that immune system is doing. The immune system is a gatekeeper, and your immune system is your body's boundaries, right? Your immune system also interacts with other systems. It interacts with hormones. They're signaling there. Vitamin D is actually a hormone, but it's very supportive of your immune system. The immune system interacts with gut health. That's where pathogens come in, right? Like we eat, unfortunately, parasites, bacteria, viruses on our food all the time, and our wonderfully functioning digestive systems eat those up so we don't get sick. But our gut health is also greatly populated by lots of good bacteria, some bad bacteria, different fungal species. And so those are all things that are part of immune function. And there's also some local immune cells in your digestive tract. Your nervous system interacts with your immune system. It is sending all the signaling. Your nervous system is what? Nerves and your brain. So your brain notices a pathogen coming in. It activates immune system. The nerves are also handling a lot of communication in with the immune system. So lots of interaction. Toxins interact with your immune system. If you have a body that's being exposed to a high amount of toxicity, that's going to limit immune cell function. It can limit bone marrow health to where you're not even forming adequate levels of immune cells. So there's interaction there between toxicity and the immune system. Sleep greatly informs the immune system, partially because when we sleep, that's primarily when we detox. So if we're not sleeping well, we're going to have a toxicity buildup. But sleep also is a time for immune cells to continue growing and functioning. And sleep can be a really big limiting factor for the immune system, just not to have enough mitochondrial power to function as a wonderfully policing immune system should. Blood sugar is a huge one. Blood sugar can really increase inflammation or drive it if we're having blood sugar difficulties. And likewise, if we have appropriate blood sugar management, that's going to take a lot of stress off of our immune system and gives your body more resiliency to inflame and uninflame. Stress is a huge one. That one's kind of easy. I think we're all familiar with, like, we get run down and then we get sick. Of course, there's going to be an interaction between stress and the immune system. Nutrient status is also very important when it comes to your immune system. You know, MTHFR and other genetic conditions are big hot button topics in pediatrics, and for good reason, because they help us to know how some bodies use their B vitamins, how some bodies detoxify certain substances, and when there are inadequate levels of B vitamins, particularly B12, B6, folate, the immune system can struggle as well. That nutrient status really informs its wellness. So all these things work together. And then, of course, our environment. Your immune system keeps out environmental triggers as well. So your immune system is a big player when it comes to seasonal allergies. It is seeing that pollen come in your nose, attacking it, cleaning it up. It is seeing seasonal allergies come in, but it's also seeing food allergies come in, seeing food sensitivities come in. And the biggest, most famous of all environmental issues is mold. Your immune system absolutely polices mold. It absolutely responds to mold, and it can be greatly limited in immune function when mold and mycotoxins are present. Going back to that toxin load, the immune system will downregulate and struggle to really perform optimally when it is flooded with those immune cell or with those mold cells and multispores, and mycotoxins. So in care, we don't look at one isolated symptom. And through the lens of functional immunology, we don't either. We look at the terrain the immune system is trying to function inside of, and then we look at how did the immune cells work in general. So I think we need to walk through that a little bit. Your immune system has different jobs in different parts. It actually functions in a certain way that we have a pretty good understanding of, and it has a really simple framework. So I always like to compare the two main arms of the immune system to a teeter-totter. You have TH1 and TH2. Let's walk out what both of those are. TH1 and TH2 are going to be on opposite sides of the teeter-totter, and the teeter-totter really should maintain relative balance. Sometimes we're going to have a little more inflammation, and TH2 will get a little more active. Sometimes we're going to have infection coming in, TH1 will be more active. But we should always have a good resolution back to balance after any immune trigger or struggle or issue. So TH1, this is fight mode. This is your immune system showing up, killing pathogens, patrolling for stuff that does not belong. Think about viruses. So things like COVID, when that enters your body, TH1 cells get very active and go handle those. The flu is the same way. Herpes varicella zoster is a rando, but really important virus for us to talk about because it is the virus that creates chickenpox when you're a child. So that comes in, you get the full presentation of that herpes varicella zoster virus, and you end up with chickenpox. The TH1 side of the immune system kills back that viral production or replication, works with TH2 to make appropriate antibodies so the body remembers, oh, this is what herpes varicella zoster looks like. We've dealt with this before. We don't have to let this turn into chickenpox next time. And so we get that good little play between TH1 and TH2. And at the end of the illness, chickenpox are gone, the child is well, and they remain well for many, many, many years. Later on in life, sometimes we see someone suffering with shingles. That is that herpes varicella zoster virus coming out of dormancy and sneaking past TH1 and creating a full-blown illness in the body. So you can see how TH1 is there to combat and fight, but then also without appropriate regulation of that little teeter-totter doing both sides work over time, infections can come back out and sneak past that TH1 side. So TH1 also handles bacteria. So infections like strep, Clostridia difficile or C. diff, we're familiar often within older people or people with GI struggles. TH1 really handles those bacterial infections too. Staph or MRSA. Impetigo is a common kiddo infection that comes from staph and strep bacteria predominantly. Mycoplasma pneumonia is something that has been made more popular or known about. We've experienced it quite a bit more after COVID, and it creates a pneumonia type presentation, often in children, but not limited to children. Your TH1 side is also going to handle intracellular infections. So infections going inside of cells, which is like viruses are part of that too. It's going to handle Lyme and bug-borne infection for the most part tend to be bacteria or spirochete bacteria. Epstein-Barr is a huge one. So mono, when your kiddo gets that in high school, TH1 is trying to fight. Once the infection is into dormancy, the child is feeling better. We know that TH1 has done its job. TH2 has created some antibodies, and we're back to nice balance. And we can move forward, not being unwell, but still carrying viral memory. Chronic pathogens are something that TH1 should be dealing with all the time. You're never going to have just one strep exposure in your life, right? Sometimes we get sick from a strep exposure, and other times we have it and then we don't have it again for many, many years. That's really what should happen. But sometimes TH1 function isn't strong or isn't showing up enough for a strep infection, and we'll see recurrent infection. So that covers TH1 fight mode. The other side of that teeter-totter of the immune system, the two main arms, is TH2. This is our allergy and inflammation mode, okay? So I want you thinking about things like seasonal allergies. That's going to be when TH2 is showing up in a big way. It's inflaming. It's creating a lot of dilation of our blood vessels to get immune cells in, where we're breathing in a lot of that allergic material, the pollen, the junk in the spring, mostly pollen flying around the air, a lot of fungal stuff in the fall for a lot of people when they have seasonal allergies in the fall. Those sort of things are coming in. TH2 is going to ramp up and inflame, and we're going to see a big uptick in that inflammation side. The other piece that we see with TH2 activity is your standard run-of-the-mill inflammation. So someone who deals with joint pain, or they deal with just like inflammatory pain from time to time, that's going to be TH2's responsibility as well. On the allergic side of things, something like FPIES is actually mediated by the TH2 side of the immune system. And understanding functional immunology is how we get our FPIES kids into resolving the FPIES. Before they grow out of it at 6, 7, 8 years old, we're able to reach full resolution of FPIES often because we understand this immune balance. So other things that antibody TH2 side does: moderates food sensitivities, it moderates food allergies, so full anaphylactic EpiPen. Histamine production, so my MCAS tendency clients, their antibody side's often overwhelmed. And then the TH2 side also handles extracellular parasites. So things like lice or pinworms, this side of the immune system is going to be moderating and handling, and we can see poor regulation of those things or recurrence in those things when TH2 is struggling. So you got these two arms, right? TH1, TH2. These are your main pieces. And when one side overfires, we say that's the immune system becoming imbalanced. And often the other side will weaken in response because they do have a relationship with one another. And sometimes one system isn't responsive. A lot of our clients do have a TH1 side that's just not responding at all. And there can be other systems interacting with this. I've seen people with rheumatological disorders. I've seen people with bone marrow issues because of infections, and so they're not making adequate levels of white blood cells, red blood cells, healthy cells, those sorts of things. And then we can see TH1 drop because those really are driven by a lot of healthy immune cells. So there's all a relationship here, but the key things are when the immune system is imbalanced, our symptoms are going to begin stacking up. The symptoms of those infections that the immune system is not able to adequately clear, and the symptoms of the TH2 side that is not adequately resolving or ending inflammation after an inflammatory episode, those things are going to start stacking up. In children, often this can look like TH1 never appropriately developing too. We'll see kids who just like their bodies really don't sort through much of anything they're exposed to. They're exposed to anything, they get sick, and there's not really great resilience there. There's just cyclical sickness of the same stuff. So immune imbalance can really affect us all differently. Quick break. If you've been curious about homeopathy, this is your sign to try it. At Hey Homeopathics, we've created liquid remedies for everything from sleep and skin to digestion and beyond. Safe, gentle, and designed for real life. And if you're a practitioner, our preferred professionals line opens the door to powerful tools like no-sodes, miasms, detoxers, and more. Anyone can shop, but professionals can apply for exclusive access. Visit heyhomeopathics.com and start your path to natural healing today. Some people are going to look constantly sick. Others may look constantly inflamed. They can actually be both. And remember, inflammation, I think we kind of got sold a bad deal on that. Like we think that inflammation's like just being puffy or it's just pain in my joints. But truly, inflammation can be pain in my digestive tract. It can be IBS. It can be an overactive digestive tract. It can be pain. It can be back pain. It can be knee pain. It can be pain that stays around way too long past an original injury. It can be all these things. And even the person who is never sick can be someone who struggles with this imbalanced immune system because their TH1's not showing up, their TH2's not showing up either, but they'll have some chronic symptoms that they're carrying. I see this most, unfortunately, in men because there's not a sensitivity. There's often they'll just power through it. I always feel this way. These are symptoms I got from my family. Like a lot of excusing it, but truly it's more the immune system is imbalanced and they happen to be decently well and resilient people, but that never sick or never fully mounting a fever, those are all signs that the immune system is imbalanced. You know, the other thing I think about with the imbalanced immune system are all of our families who do everything wonderfully. They eat well, they eat to balance their blood sugar, they're eating organic, they're non-GMO, they're not eating trash, their sugar's so limited, there's so much sunshine and grounding and outside play. These people are doing wonderful things for their bodies, but in the environment of an imbalanced immune system, as soon as you remove those great habits, they don't feel well. So my history is even learning how to use special diets to control or support more immune resilience. So for me, I had Hashimoto's and I dealt with that quite intensively for a few years. I had Epstein-Barr viral issue acutely. And a special diet, being on the autoimmune protocol diet, really helped to get things in to a manageable way for me about 10 years ago. But what would happen is if I ever came off of that diet at all, my body would really rebel. I really would struggle a lot. And so even those great habits, when you pull them out and then you see symptoms, we know that there's an immune component and we have work that we can resolve so that person does not have to stay on a special diet forever. So many of our clients are simultaneously like under functioning against infections and then overreacting to harmless things like food, pollen, stress, just like really quickly inflaming. There is another part of the immune system called TH17, and we'll talk about that a little bit more, but that's really like the big guns that come in. When TH2 can't inflame enough and resolve things, TH1 isn't killing. TH17 is that arm of the immune system that's like a bonfire. It's going to come in and be really overreactive. It's going to really drive tissue destruction in its reactivity. It doesn't just come in and inflame a little bit. It comes in and inflames big time. It can damage tissue, and it's actually what's responsible for starting autoimmune process, where the immune system has now turned on the body. It's no longer only patrolling outside substances, pathogens, foods. It's coming and really attacking the body's cells as well. And when TH17 is turned on, it can be very difficult to get it turned all the way off. But when we understand the TH1 and 2 balance, how 17 is propelled forward or calmed down, then we are able to really have a roadmap for fully resolving a lot of autoimmune disease, getting it into dormancy and resolving progression, resolving tissue damage. Which, listen, when it comes to something like PANS and PANDAS, where the autoimmunity is destructing brain tissue, I will shout it from the rooftops that we can use functional immunology to save bodily tissue, to stop that autoimmune progression. Because when that starts in a little kiddo and their brain is being destructed by their own immune system at age 4 and 5, we don't quite know yet, because PANS PANDAS isn't super old. What's their brain going to look like when they're 50, when they're 70, when they get a shingles vaccine at 60 and they have a shingles? What is it going to look like? So it's really important for us to understand TH1 and 2, but also 17, and knowing that autoimmunity does not have to have the last word in the body, because functional immunology gives us a map for how to improve whatever is progressing that autoimmunity so that we can hopefully shut off that tissue destruction. So with this balance, it's so important. And a lot of times clients will ask, okay, I can tell I'm imbalanced. I'm seeing that I'm not killing Epstein-Barr that I live chronically with. I can see that I'm overinflaming. I've got a lot of inflammation. I got a lot of food sensitivities. I feel a lot of pain in my body, but like, what do I do about it? Why did it happen to me? Why didn't it happen to my neighbor? Really important. Never well since. This means you've never been well since XYZ, a vaccine, a sickness, a surgery, a car accident, since your parents died, since your divorce. This is what we call a triggering event. So triggering events can cause that immune system's TH1 and 2 balance to be completely knocked off of its balance, okay? So most chronically ill people can typically identify for me a turning point. And that's a big flag for me, where I know immune system work is going to turn this around so that they get a new foundation of health. Triggering events are very important because some of them are even good. Pregnancy is actually a triggering event. When we become pregnant, it's a TH2 dominant state. So TH1 actually gets downregulated because we don't want immune cells killing the embryo implantation. We don't want them going in and saying, oh, wow, this is not part of Elizabeth. Of course, every single human being that has come to be has parts of not the mother's body inside, right? The semen comes in, that is an outsider. And your body is going to want to deal with that, especially if it is unhealthy. So semen quality, whole nother discussion for another day. But the immune system can go and into pregnancy and implantation. It can end an unhealthy pregnancy at any point when we see resulting in miscarriage. Not all, but some. It can interfere with a pregnancy through an ectopic pregnancy. There's inflammatory processes going on there. So without getting into it, really, what should happen when you're pregnant is TH2 takes over, TH1 calms down, and then we're done being pregnant. Immune system should go back into balance. So for some women, this means going into pregnancy, they never really felt great. They had immune issues. They felt awesome when they're pregnant. And then after they had baby, sometimes they go back to feeling not as great. And sometimes their autoimmune or persistent immune issues actually resolve. We have a client, she's one in a house of 6 that we've seen now. all other 5 people have major immune issues. She gained health every single time she had a baby because her immune system actually recovered better balance afterwards. So it can go both ways. But let's talk about when it doesn't. What are other common triggers? Stressors are huge. So death, divorce, job loss, anything that you don't have skills to cope with at the time and create stress for you can be a huge immune trigger. Think too about things like moving. Well, when that happens, like you literally get exhausted. There's so much more work going on in your day to day. There's the emotional work. There's all the added labor of shopping for a house and packing and moving. Those things limit immune function too, just by their very nature of kind of draining us. So stressors can be stressors, but they can also be things that just take a lot more from us. Stress or grief is a huge one. So I like to talk about death as a huge piece that always triggers that, or can often trigger that herpes varicella zoster out of dormancy, right? That was the chickenpox virus. How many older people do you know have had shingles, but it's been after an episode of a sickness? So many, after they've lost a friend, after someone they've been caretaking for passes, and then very quickly thereafter, they're struggling with shingles. That's a big stressor. Mold exposure, huge stressor to the immune system. It's not only toxic, but it's really limiting to immune cell production. COVID's another one. A lot of other viruses, Epstein-Barr, mono, those are big immune triggers. So sometimes I'll see in my teenage, early college clients, which that's not a great time, right? We're not always taking good care of ourselves at that point in time. But we will see them struggle with mono. And then quickly thereafter, they're starting to deal with bronchitis, or they're starting to deal with eczema. They're starting to deal with other bacterially driven issues in the body because that mono acted as an immune trigger for them to lessen the support of TH1 really killing those things. And now we're seeing it manifest as skin problems or even anxiety. Those sort of things can be there too. Tick bites are a big immune trigger. Bug bites can be them, spider bites, right? Because any of those vectors can transmit infection at the time that they're biting. Antibiotics can be a big trigger, especially IV antibiotics. And then certain families of antibiotics can interact with certain genetics. I think about my Ehrler-Danlos crew. They have certain genetics that are going to interact with certain medications that impact collagen. And that can be a trigger as well. Surgery is a big trigger for lots of reasons, but we're also often exposed to resistant strains of bacteria that are found in hospitals. Same for labor and delivery. We have a baby in a hospital. We can pick up things there. We have a baby in a moldy home and have a picturesque home birth. We can also limit our immune system there. So lots of things to think about and not things to be afraid of. Okay. These are all things in our world that should be present, that we should be able to move through with healthy immune balance and deal with. Vaccine reactions are another thing I want to talk about briefly. There's a few components, and I probably need to do a whole episode about how these interact with our immune systems to the best of our understanding. But the high points are there are lots of components to our vaccines. A lot of vaccines will have bovine serum or albumin in them. Albumin comes from egg. And so if we inject those things into a body, particularly one where an immune system's already imbalanced or it's already overactive, overactivity can be you're sick, your kid has eczema going on, your kid has a rashing, impetigo, anything like that going on. When we inject at the time of illness, we are triggering an already active immune system. And it can take that trigger and decide to now become overactive in its response to some of those ingredients in the immunization, as opposed to creating good, healthy immune response to the immunization, right? So I can vaccinate you with something that has bovine or cow serum in it, and now you're really struggling with dairy response. Or I can see kids a lot of times with a vaccine that contains albumin in it, then they start reacting to eggs. So those sorts of things are really important to think about. There's also interaction documented in many studies between certain vaccines. So MMR is a great one, great example that it can limit in many people their immune resilience or that TH1 response to Clostridia, full Clostridia family. So not just Clostridia difficile or C. diff, all Clostridia, and Streptococcal bacteria Candida. So these are three pathogens that are very closely tied in to autism and ADHD presentations. Whether they're causative, it's not perfectly clear yet. I would say there's plenty of research there to see and understand them as pathogens that very consistently cause progress to autism symptom load, ADHD type presentations. So blah, 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 blah. There are very many things that can trigger an immune system into imbalance. Now, sometimes an immune system never fully recalibrates after that trigger. What should happen is you deal with the stressor, maybe you get a little sick, TH1 kind of goes offline, but after we get through the stressor, balance should come back. Some bodies don't recalibrate. Some bodies stay stuck in survival mode. This is really common with Lyme infections in particular because they will go and burrow in the system and the immune system knows something is here. We just can't quite find it. And that creates this overimmune response. You have a lot of TH2 activity. We have a lot of histamine production ongoing over time. And that immune system is just not really recovered since that triggering event of the bug bite. The immune system can then begin reacting inappropriately. So a lot of times we'll see food allergies or sensitivities in kids after immunization, or we'll see FPIES onset. A lot of times we'll see eczema pop up after we've introduced solids into the diet at 6 months. So there are lots of different things that the immune system after a trigger will be compelled to react inappropriately. Symptoms basically just start piling up. So that's when we start to see the symptoms of like the chronic lingering infection. All this stuff I'm about to tell you, these are all symptoms that come from individual infections. So when I do a clarity call with someone, I can pretty much hear the likelihood of which chronic infections are at play and if their immune system is driving their body's just like symptom dysfunction. So things like chronic fatigue, anxiety. Did you know anxiety can be driven solely by pathogen load? Not just you worrying about what's going to happen next in life. Food reactions, that's a big symptom load. Food reactions can even map out to be certain groups of things. Epstein-Barr has a strong correlation with egg reactivity. It also helps that a viral load of Epstein-Barr replicate. So there are little nuances to things that help us to understand what's up. People a lot of times will feel very sensitive to sugar. They can only eat a little bit, or if they eat a little bit, they feel really weird, or like a lot of times that is progression of a bacterial infection, sometimes candida. Insomnia is a huge one. Insomnia is related to immune issues. We look at it and think, no, I just can't sleep. Well, yeah, you can't sleep because your body is packing around a Lyme infection that dysregulates your circadian rhythm and your melatonin production. Or you can't sleep because your body is using melatonin to detoxify your brain and you're not getting to use it to cue your sleep in the evening. So everything you can see has an interaction. Your systems, your organ systems are not siloed. They are not individual parts that don't interact. They absolutely interact and affect each other. Recurrent infection, big sign that symptoms are piling up. You keep getting bronchitis over and over again. You always get a sinus infection this time of year. You're always getting impetigo when we go back to school and the kids all touch each other. No, we should not be getting those things recurrently unless the immune system is dysfunctioning. Digestive symptoms are huge. People who come and they say, I've had SIBO, I've done everything, it's not gone away. The issue is actually not the bacteria. It's not the bacteria that are overgrown in the intestines. It's the immune system not policing those bacteria, allowing the good ones to grow, the bad ones to die. POTS and MCAS, huge. Mast cells can remain very active, especially after mold, when strep populations are high in the body, when Lyme and other bug-borne populations are high in the body. And so you'll present as someone who has POTS and MCAS, and it's a big giant mystery. But truly, the whole crux, especially of MCAS, is mast cells are immune cells. That means you have an immune problem. Autoimmune symptoms are another big one, or autoimmune diagnoses. And I would even say the client who's had autoimmune diagnoses in the past and resolved them, or they've come and gone, or we see like little signs of lupus, but never a full diagnosis, or we've been to the rheumatologist, but they couldn't figure out what was going on, or you didn't have a positive ANA. You didn't fully meet the diagnostic criteria, but you had autoimmune type symptom load that's hanging out and showing up for you. These are all signs that the immune system is at the root of whatever's going on in the body symptom-wise. We have to resolve it at the immune level. So I want to move into kind of like a hot button issue this summer, as there's so much talking about how many more ticks there are. There's a lot more concern about Lyme. And I would say in the years that we've addressed this and supported this for our clients, it's absolutely grown. And just from a basic, like, bugs reproduce, our winters aren't as cold, so there's not as much freeze. And we're also seeing that ticks are becoming more resilient even to winter. So there's just more opportunity. The bug is only part of the story. And I want us to walk through quickly, like, why can one person get bitten and they're okay, but then someone else gets bitten and they go down really hard, really quick and become very ill? So Not every tick carries Lyme and co-infections, number one. That's really important. Some ticks are going to carry some infections like Toxoplasmosa, Bartonella, Anaplasma, Rickettsia, Rocky Mountain spotted fever, I think it's a Toxoplasmosis, it's actually a parasite, Babesia, Borrelia, the Lyme bacteria. They can carry one, they can carry none, they can carry six, like they can carry multiple things. And then what happens after the tick bites depends on if the tick injects into your body those infections. So the tick generally carries infection in its hindgut. It attaches to your body, it starts to suck your blood, and it's going to mix your blood with the materials of its hindgut. And at some point it vomits back into your body, therefore your bloodstream, because it's attached to a vein. And now we have an infection coming into the body. You and I can both be bit by the same tick, attached for the same amount of time. It absolutely regurgitates into our bloodstream, and you get Lyme and I do not. What happened? A healthy TH1 arm of the immune system should appear when a tick bite occurs, consume the pathogens with those TH1 side cells, neutralize it, prevent an infection intrusion, okay? This can absolutely happen. So sometimes people will say, I sent that tick off for testing and it had 5 infections and I don't know what to do. And I kind of feel fine. I never had a rash of any kind, bullseye or otherwise, because a bullseye rash is not necessary for a Lyme diagnosis. But I don't understand. Well, this also can happen with appropriate antibody response for someone who's had Lyme before and the body has created appropriate antibody memory. When they're bitten again, what should happen is those antibodies, the TH2, come out and say, oh my gosh, we already know this is Lyme. We're going to address it. No big deal. Let's move this from Lyme into strep, okay? We've probably all had strep. Most of us had at one point or another, or we've had an ear infection, which is often strep bacteria causing that. Many of us now have children, or we're around children, or we go to the grocery store where children go. Strep has become more antibiotic resistant and it is around us all the time. So when my kid breathes in my face and I don't get strep, what happened? My killer side was active. It came out and killed those strep cells that came right into my face, handled it. Same thing that happens when one kid in the house has impetigo and not everybody else gets it. Mom and dad don't get it, but maybe the siblings do. What happened? The TH1 side of the healthy people's immune system showed up, handled that bacteria, and it didn't turn into an illness. That's what we want. So we know that some people are going to get bit by a tick who's carrying Lyme and co-infections, and they will become sick. Their killer side was not showing up and doing what it needed to do. Their antibody side may not have already been familiar with those infections too. The people who do resolve, those people have a healthier terrain, healthier immune system. So that's really what we want to move towards. It's really all about immune resilience. It's about the body's total toxin burden, because if I am full of toxicity because I'm living in mold, my immune system is going to struggle big time to mount an appropriate response when I get bit by that tick. Stress load is huge. People get bit in a time and they're already stressed out, or they're already exhausted, or they become super stressed out about the tick exposure, and that can tank the immune system. Nutrient status is huge. If we don't have adequate nutrients to run appropriate immune cells, if we're struggling with anemias, if we struggle with bone marrow quality, low ferritin, those sort of things, that can affect our immune resilience, because where are a lot of our immune cells made? In your bone marrow. Super important. So if we don't have adequate iron levels, we don't have adequate B levels, we're not going to have healthy blood. Blood's coming from that bone marrow. So nutrient status is really important. Gut health is huge. If we have unhealthy gut health, we can also even have infections make a home in our gut. So people can have strep in the throat. You can have strep in the gut. Some kids have both. So when they get sick, before you know that it's a full-blown strep throat infection, they throw up. And that's your little signal. Oh, Johnny threw up one time. Guess you're about to deal with strep again. That's pretty typical, because your gut health is really connected. Your gut is also mucosal layers. So anywhere that's snotty or slimy, I say, your ENT, your mouth, your gut, all the way out and through the other end, those are mucosal areas, and they are full of bacteria, good, bad, and otherwise, that help to consume our food and break it down. Like, those portions are really important for fortifying our immune system. Genetics and detox pathways are huge too. If I am someone who has GST gene issues, I don't make adequate glutathione, which is my body's master antioxidant. Say I get bit by a tick, I start having mast cell activation, I've got a lot of inflammation going on, and I just don't have adequate levels of glutathione, nor can I make it or use it. My body's going to really struggle to resolve that inflammation without a great diet, high antioxidants in my food already, a lot of rest at the time. So there's lots of factors that can play when we have an immune threat come in, whether it's a kid breathing strep in my face or it is a tick biting me. Total inflammatory load's huge too, especially with Lyme and co-infections. If we're already someone that leans towards an overinflamed state, your immune cells are basically too active. TH2 is already way too busy. There's too many of those inflammatory guys running around. When someone's bit by a tick and we're dealing with an acute client, one of the biggest, most important things that we can do is to reduce inflammation, because inflammation can get out of hand really, really quickly. That's what happens when someone has an anaphylactic response. They have a very, very quick over-inflammatory side of the immune system that can turn into anaphylaxis, lack of breathing, all those sort of things, right? If you're already carrying a high inflammatory load, tick bite comes in, your immune system is going to get very inflammatory very quickly, because that's just the nature of how that works. And it can go overboard really quickly. So the more we can handle that total inflammatory load, the better our immune resilience is going to be, the better TH1 is going to be able to show up and hang out. So it's really about all the factors that support the immune system, which is important. We'll talk kind of about how do you care for someone with this functional immunology approach, Elizabeth, if all of these other systems often matter too. Well, we'll get to that. So big takeaways from this part, and the tick fears are just not all ticks carry infections. So let's just stop there. Not every single one that bites is going to have something, and not all exposures create disease. So you can be bit, I can be bit, our ticks can do the same thing, carry the same stuff, and your body's status when you had the bite and mine are going to inform whether or not we get sick. But a dysregulated immune system is much more vulnerable to persistent infection, to chronic inflammation, to inappropriate immune signaling. And what I love about understanding functional immunology is it really takes away this whole fear-based medicine approach, right? Like when somebody gets bit by a tick, and I say this as a person who formerly contracted Lyme and alpha-gal and got very sick very quick. And I was also already a very healthy lady working in this space. Every person who weighed in, doctors, ER doctors, clinicians, weighed in on my case, it was very fear-based. They didn't know what to do. They didn't know why my body was inflaming. They didn't know why I had an onset of MCAS, why I had an onset of POTS, why I was super heat intolerant. I'm talking, it was 65 degrees outside and I was overheating. No one had any idea. It was all very scary to everyone. Once we understand the immune system function and we understand how the terrain of the body works, what these immune cells are doing, where they come from, how they get closed out or resolved, we don't have to function in this very scared place anymore. And I think that's one of the beautiful gifts that COVID gave us, because it really pushed immunology research forward more. It moved smart voices in that area forward. So let's talk about patterns that we see that are immune patterns, because I know you're wondering, okay, I'm hearing you, Elizabeth, on the balance thing. I'm hearing you on autoimmunity and TH17, and I'm feeling like maybe I have some patterns. So recurrent infection clients, a lot of times we're going to see chronic sinus infection, bronchitis. We'll see recurrent strep. Sometimes we receive recurrent mycoplasma, or we'll see recurrent RSV, things that are commonly in our world that are just around, we're all being exposed to. We often will see UTIs that are recurrent, bladder infections, whether it's a full UTI or you're just getting the symptoms of it. We can see ear infections over and over and over and over again, despite the tubes, with the tubes, without the tubes. We'll also see pneumonia, shingles popping up over and over, or just one or two times. They really should not come back out. We should not experience shingles if we've had chickenpox before. Our immune system should retain dormancy over that. And we can even see prostate issues. That's another place where there are some hollow spaces. And when we see those hollow spaces, the lungs, ear, nose, and throat area, our gut, digestive tract, intestines, even that prostate, when they're not maintained by TH1 and TH2 balance, when that part of the immune system can't get a handle on infections and symptoms there, that's when TH17 steps in and says, I got this. I'm going to handle these inflammatory issues in these lungs. And that's when we see more difficult things like asthma, or a lot of breathing restriction come in. We see the anaphylaxis. We see full body rashing issues from these hollow spaces not being able to manage themselves. So it's really important to kind of understand that. And our immune dysregulation clients are seeing everything from allergies, whether seasonally or food sensitivities, food allergies. Asthma is a huge one because that is just the inflammatory cascade jumping way off a cliff and creating that mass inflammation in the lungs. If you've been wanting to transform your health but don't know where to start, I've got you. My full color cookbook is much more than recipes. It's a 300-page crash course in healing through food. You'll get 125 plus gluten-free, dairy-free, soy-free meals the whole family will love, plus step-by-step guides on shopping smarter, improving digestion, and making your kitchen a healing place. It's gorgeous, practical, and designed to make healthy living simple. Grab your copy at heyheymae.com/cookbook and start changing your health one delicious bite at a time. We see a lot of histamine reactions, whether that's skin stuff or heart palpitations, racing heart, brain fog and dizziness. We can even see tics and tremors and vision changes. We'll see sometimes tunnel vision with someone when they're dealing with an acute histamine POTS type reaction. We absolutely see POTS and MCAS as well. So remember, MCAS stands for mast cell activation syndrome, and mast cells are immune cells. And so we're going to see symptoms there that are totally stemming from the immune system. We also will see FPIES. So that is a condition where a child, usually under the age of 8, is having a delayed, often anaphylactic response to certain foods. And that, again, is immune system mediated. We can also see with immune issues, nervous system symptoms. So some of our clients, based on their pathogen load, are going to map out to kind of hit one area or the other. A lot of our pandas kids, we see the full litany of more nervous system symptoms. So anxiety, panic, rage, irritability. Your mom irritability and rage is not always just you. It can be pathogen load and your immune system playing together. OCD and impulsivity, we see that a ton with strep. Brain fog and dizziness, those sort of things can come too, and sensory issues. So those would be a client who's got a lot more nervous system symptoms that are stemming from immune system symptoms. And then we have our clients who have gut symptoms. These are my favorite because they come and they're like, I just have this gut issue. I just need a protocol for how to kill my gut bacteria. I need a better one for my SIBO. No. Typically, these people are going to have bloating, constipation, diarrhea, reflux for years. They're on omeprazole, but that doesn't work. Or if they go off it for a minute, then they really struggle. They can have IBS, IBD. They can have candida patterns or just recurrent fungal issues in the body, whether that is candida in the gut, vaginal yeast infections, or ongoing athlete's foot, nail fungus. All of these things are manifestations in the gut of issues in the immune system. And this is why we don't just address or support one system when we work through care with somebody. Your body systems are absolutely not siloed, and every body system talks to every other body system. You're not just a Lyme case, you're not just a hormone case or just a gut health case, because the immune system and all of these other things interact. And other things like blood sugar balance drive the immune system. Detox defects and genetics push the immune system, limit it. Food can absolutely push the immune system. If you continue eating foods that you're currently sensitive or allergic to, you're going to have a limited immune system, more inflammation, which can create more brain inflammation, more dysbiosis. Everything's kind of a vicious circle when you start understanding what's going on, but addressing that immune system that's driving all the circles. That is where we get to a real new foundation in health. So other things to think about as far as system clues that your immune system's actually at the crutch or, at the driver's seat of the problems that are thyroid function. When we've got any kind of thyroid autoimmunity, Graves, Hashimoto's, whether it is ongoing or you had some antibodies, we know the immune system is playing. Mold and toxins absolutely limit the immune system, and they are going to create a cascade of symptoms. Hormone issues can be there because of spillover from other symptoms. If you have a lot of bad bacteria in the body, those bacteria eat and peep and poop, and they die, and they let off toxicity. And that can impact hormones, because if the body has to clear those quite a bit, it can back up on clearing things like excess estrogen, and you just look like a estrogen heavy person. But really, your body would clear the estrogen well if we didn't have an uptick in histamine from the immune system and pathogen load in the body. Vascular and O2 delivery is huge. Sometimes pathogens will limit oxygen delivery in the system. The body can downregulate iron production if you have a parasite issue, because parasites, some of them love to eat iron. So you can really see how these things are they're not strictly the immune system. Like if you've got low iron, we don't look at that and say, your anemia is because of your immune system. It'd almost be kind of dumb. Well, your anemia is because you don't have enough iron. But how do we get here? We got here because your body has a lot of parasites, and it has decided to not store iron because the iron feeds the parasites and makes more of a problem. So we need to get to the immune system and ask it, why are you not kicking these parasites out? And then we can resolve the iron issue in time. Infections are huge. Gut microbiome, we talked about that, and the nutrient depletion is huge because your immune system runs on nutrients. So do all the other systems. Chronic infections need nutrients of their own. Viruses can't live on their own. They've got to get inside your cells and live off your mitochondria. Pathogens going in and out of cells are also going to eat up minerals. So mineral supply and balance can also be a big part of this too. But your immune system lives in your whole body, which is great. It can go anywhere and deal with an injury or an infection. But your body systems are also in close quarters. And so inflammation in one area can mean inflammation in another. When clients have issues in their intestines, say I'm seeing a female client with IBS or SIBO issues, I can guarantee you we have hormone issues because her female organs, the uterus and ovaries, back up to those intestines, and inflammation doesn't just stay in a perfect little tight pocket inside of her GI tract. It can move right on over to neighboring organs. So you can start to see how everything's related. Hopefully you're not overwhelmed. If you are, we're happy to take the wheel from here. But healing isn't really just one magic answer, which is great and stinks. I always say that to clients who are like, I've been working on this forever. I've done a protocol for this and for that and for this. I'm just not better, and I don't want to try another thing. Well, I get that. I absolutely get that. And that's really how I even came into this space on my own many, many years ago. But healing isn't usually one magic answer. Recovery involves all parts, right? It involves calming that inflammation. We got to get it calm so that your immune cells can complete inflammatory cycles. We've got to improve your immune resilience. We got to wake up TH1 against whatever it is that your immune system's allowing to live in your body. We have to address those infections. Sometimes we need to kill them with antimicrobials. All of the time, we have to wake up your TH1 arm of your immune system to naturally create immune resilience and know from here forward that your body is going to kill Epstein-Barr virus. It's going to do that appropriately, right? We have to get that TH1 side woken up. We always have to support detoxification. This one is huge. I want to do a little caveat and talk about what a Herx reaction is. A Herx reaction is just when your body tries to clear an infection too quickly. There's too much die-off, and it can't do that. It was coined in Lyme world because Lyme, when it dies off, does create a lot of what I said earlier, like the poop and peep basically from the pathogen, which is really toxic. When you have die-off really quickly, then the body experiences the symptoms of that toxin upload. It can happen with fungal stuff too. A lot of times people will say, well, I'm really sensitive. I don't know if I can do this. One time I used this supplement. I had a big reaction to it. It's a bad supplement. No, there's got to be more strategy there. Typically, we're having a Herxheimer because we haven't supported detoxification and drainage well enough, and pathogen load has started to be killed off, or the immune system starting to pick up, killing it off, and then we kind of have a bottleneck. So that's huge and has to be a part of addressing chronic infections, or you're going to feel like junk. And anybody who feels like junk during a protocol is not going to get through it. We're not going to get to the other side. So that part's very, very important. Nourishing the body is huge. A lot of times we need a lot more nutrients when we're doing immune work. Sometimes we need more vitamin D, we need more vitamin C, we need zinc, other minerals. That part's really important, and it has to be done strategically because even too much of a nutrient is not a good thing. Too much vitamin D greatly burdens the liver. I need your liver working, and handling detoxification of the trash that we're pushing out is super important. We can't be burdening it by over pushing that vitamin D. So rebuilding tolerance is really the name of the game when it comes to the immune system. The goal is not perfection. It's that your body is naturally adapting, that your body goes back to that good, right design of an active TH1 side killing things, an active TH2 remembering antibodies, inflaming when you need it to. I really want your body to inflame when you got a cut, have a fever when you get sick to kill that bacteria, and then go back to normal. So that's really our goal. And in that process, the basics are really powerful, because sometimes people will say, okay, fine, fix my immune system. That'll handle it, right? Well, it'll handle it for a little while, but if you're not going to sleep, you're not going to eat protein, you're not going to have minerals repleted in your body, you're not going to move, you're going to let your blood sugar get all dysregulated, you're just welcoming back in more triggering events, and we're going to be right back where we started. So the foundations are really powerful, but I would say immune work takes away some of their essentialism. Back to those clients who are on special diets to maintain their health, they get to move away from a special diet once their immune system's been resolved. They still need to eat well. They still need to manage their stress, handle their toxic burden, pay attention to their gut health if something gets awry. But typically they move into a new season of like a really solid, healthy foundation. They're not dealing with chronic issues again. And even advanced therapies, like once clients get better, they're often like, I've literally never felt this good in my life. I can exercise. I have such good resilience. I'm not sick all the time. I've got energy. I want to optimize now. Well, those therapies that are part of optimization work so well when the body has those good foundations in place and the immune system is balanced. So really important. And I think my big takeaway for you guys today is, if you've heard nothing else, not listened or understood any of my other nerd talk here, is just when you work with someone, you have got to work with someone who can connect the dots. You want to look for someone who is a good listener, who can really see patterns, who can push past diagnoses and labels and look for, how did we get there? How are systems and symptoms working together? And what do they mean? You've got to have somebody who can interpret symptoms alongside labs. Lyme, for example, is a clinical diagnosis. That means that you can't make that diagnosis based on labs alone or symptoms alone. Both parts have to come together. Lyme testing is difficult, and I will talk about that some other time, but you can easily have, depending too on when you were bitten, if you test for Lyme this week and you were just bitten 2 days ago, you're not going to have any result on that test. You're not going to. So we have to make decisions on how do we address and support your body. Your physician's going to make a diagnosis based on testing and symptoms. So someone who understands both of those things. Another huge part with the immune system is we can't have a practitioner who dismisses fluctuating symptoms. For me, when I'm looking for Lyme, if you've had symptoms that are multi-system and they move around the body over time, I know my ears perk up and I start to listen. Are there other Lyme signs? Because that's a classic sign of Lyme, that the symptoms move around from system to system, and they change over time. So that's really big. And then just understanding that I think we're done with these SY words. Understand that systems are connected. So if you are having hormone issues, but you're also having IBS, and someone goes in to just address your hormone issues, that's not going to work. They will be back next month, next week, because your digestive tract is creating trash. It has inflammation going on. It's not absorbing nutrients that you need. Like, that's going to impact your hormones. So got to understand kind of the body's priorities, how the systems work together, and then how the immune system moderates the whole deal. The right practitioner is going to help you understand why your body is responding the way it is. Okay. I love my doctors. So thankful for them. I'm so thankful I can go to the ER if I get in a car accident. That's not the place for us to go and seek understanding of our body. That's not really the place for us to go and seek understanding and resolution, education around why our body's been stuck one way, or we're dealing with chronic autoimmunity. I would even say that rheumatology is not the place for you to go and learn what's up with your autoimmunity, because their job is to diagnose and treat disease, to give you something to make you feel better, to improve your condition. The goal is not necessarily resolution in those spaces, okay? So the right practitioner is going to help you understand why your body's responding the way it is and the tools to get you out of there. Your symptoms are absolutely communication. So if we see symptoms of mold, I want you guys to go back and listen to those mold episodes in old podcast seasons. That's your body communicating and saying, hey, we're showing you this pattern because we're exposed to mold. Your symptoms are communication. POTS and MCAS, love clients who come in with that, because you know what POTS and MCAS are? their immune response to other pathogens. If someone's got, Raynaud's, they've got sinus congestion, allergies, sneezing, they get headaches, they get dizzy, they've got a lot of anxiety, they'll get some diarrhea and constipation. They're going to have rashes and hives and eczema, heat intolerance. Well, this sounds like a whole crazy group of symptoms, right? It also sounds like MCAS. You know what else it sounds like? A whole symptom load of Lyme. So it's really important that we move past diagnoses and we start to look for the patterns, that we can look at symptoms and say, okay, yeah, Susie has all these symptoms of MCAS. This is her group. Well, guess what? This group of MCAS symptoms look exactly like Lyme symptoms. So let's think and look there. Same with POTS. Someone who's dealing with POTS symptoms that are more of the allergic side, allergies, exercise intolerance, a lot of that fatigue or fatigue after meals, dizziness, whooshing or sensation in their ears, ringing in the ears even, blood sugar regulation issues or dysregulation, bloating, constipation, vomiting, abdominal pain. Guess what? Those are all POTS symptoms. Those are also all symptoms of someone who's dealing with a chronic strep and bacterial infection. So it's really important that we move past diagnoses and you have someone who can see symptoms as communication. Everything communicates. Fertility is communication. That's your body saying, hey, we're not safe enough. We don't have the resources to support a pregnancy. Sometimes miscarriage or the inability to obtain a pregnancy, your immune system is involved there often. Ectopic pregnancies, your immune system is involved and the body's trying to tell us something. Things like Lyme, very clearly an immune issue. Resolving it, the immune system has to be resolved. We can't just throw antibiotics and herbals at it and expect it to go away, because the immune system is the reason its dysfunction is why Lyme's allowed to stay. So if we're using antibiotics and herbals to kill it, that's all we're doing is we're killing. Immune training has to happen for that person to obtain a new foundation of health. Chronic infection stories, I got those for days. People who deal with eczema over and over and over again. That's typically a bacterial, fungal, pathogen issue. It can also be a viral issue. We can see severe eczema and rashing from Epstein-Barr virus and other herpes viruses. Think about how HSV2 creates, HSV1 creates cold sores. That is a skin issue, right? You get a cold sore, that is like a blister. But guess what? It's from a herpes virus. So it's really important that we can kind of see how the immune system can be at the root of skin stuff, can be at the root of chronic infections like impetigo or molluscum. That is an immune issue. And then secondarily, our nervous system can heal, because think about if there's viruses running all around your body, your nervous system and your immune system are seeing those, sending cells there to deal with it. But that can really be your own internal nervous system trigger, right? There's a lot of activity going on. And anytime we have nervous system issues, just a lot of stimulation. So we start thinking creatively about function. When we start using the lens of functional immunology, we can learn that your body's not attacking you at random. Your symptoms are often your immune system's attempt to adapt, to protect, to survive. And the question isn't just like, what symptoms do you have? It's, why does this immune system feel unsafe in the first place? What's here dysregulating this immune system? The immune system is at the core of so many chronic illnesses, chronic symptoms. And this season, we're going to unfold for you lots of different client stories of overcoming that immune dysfunction, gaining a healthy body, gaining immune resilience, spending way less time sick, more time healthy, getting a new foundation so clients can then optimize instead of struggling ongoing. We're going to walk through really cool things resolving, like FPIs, like anaphylactic allergies, stuff that's really scary, can resolve and greatly improve when we think about how the immune system works and work at it from that angle. So excited to spend time with you this season. Come back. We'll be popping out episodes all summer long. Lots for you guys to enjoy and learn from. Thanks for listening. I hope you're leaving encouraged, curious, and hopeful. If you learned something, I'd love for you to share this episode with a friend. Hey, we are all healing together. You can learn more about my practice, our team, and what it's like to work with us at heyheymay.com. I teach lots on Instagram and answer questions there each Monday. My Instagram handle is at heyheyelizabethmay. You can watch these podcast episodes and more on our YouTube channel, Hey Hey May. Learn about and enjoy our homeopathic line and take our homeopathic short course at heyheyhomeopathics.com. Happy healing!